Welcome to Rita Mary Commentary with co-host Gretel Corsall.
Our purpose is to introduce you to interesting, important, and fun happenings in and around Surprise.
We bring you new discoveries and things we rediscovered, some of which have been around Grand for a long time, but need revisiting because they can and will be, at some time in your life, relevant to you. In essence, we find, we explain and clarify, and introduce you to the people in the know.
You know, I had a severe injury in 2007 where I had a head injury, I had post-traumatic stress, and I had an astronomical amount of physical pain. I had my whole face rebuilt, my whole forehead is titanium. They cut me from ear to ear, gave me a titanium plate in my forehead, rebuilt my orbital socket. My palate was blasted out, my cheekbone was blasted out, and they rebuilt that from my hip. So I had some serious trauma.
Hello. Today on our show we have with us retired Sergeant First Class Brian Mancini. You may have seen him on the Oprah Winfrey Channel, ABC TV 15 News, CBS 60 Minutes, or perhaps you've heard him on 92.3 KTAR radio, or you may have seen him on social media such as YouTube channels, Huffington Post, or a variety of other social networking sites, including Facebook. And also with us on our show today, we have Dominic Martinez, and he'll tell you a little bit about his story a little later on in the show.
Welcome, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and how you met and got involved with the board members of the Armed Forces Support Group here in Grand?
Sure. I served about 13 years in the military. I joined the military in 1998 and was retired in 2011. I did 2 tours in combat. In 2007, I was severely wounded in Baghdad, Iraq. I was hit by a roadside bomb and spent roughly 3 years, 8 months at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, getting my face rebuilt and learning how to walk and talk again and healing physically and emotionally. When I was retired in 2011, I came back to my hometown, Phoenix, Arizona, and I met an amazing person with Armed Forces Support Group by the name of Barry Crusaden. I was put in contact with him by a nonprofit agency that was influential in my healing process at Walter Reed, an organization by the name of Troops First Foundation, and their founder, Rick Kell, put me in direct contact with Barry Crusaden, and Barry Crusaden has been an instrumental part of my personal transitional healing process and obviously supporting the Honor House and our programs that we've developed.
What is the Armed Forces Support Group?
Well, it's constantly evolving. I don't think it's one thing, but I can tell you how it began and where we are now. And began 6 years ago when my son was serving in Iraq. And I realized when a soldier serves, a family serves. And this was very emotional to me, as it is to most people. But it's so important to remember, and one of the goals of our group is to keep reminding people that these sacrifices are going on every day. We have a tendency to get wrapped up in our own problems and don't remember that these veterans or these active military and their families and these veterans and their families have the same problems, but they're also serving our country. This is less than 1% of our population that's protecting our rights all around the world. Whether you agree with the war or not, I can't help but say, how can we support those people that are doing this duty for us? So that's one of the ways, one of the reasons I got started, to keep reminding people, to have this group or club in Sun City Grand that thanks those veterans and reminds the Surprise community as well as the Grand community that these sacrifices are going on as I speak right now. We only support 501c3 foundations with our monies that we raise. And that's how we've come into contact, not just with Brian's Honor House. We are involved with 2 service dog foundations, Soldier's Best Friend, Foundation for Service Dog Support. We've given to a scholarship foundations, Folds of Honor, and Faraday Troops First Foundation was basically where I met Brian years ago.
That's what I was going to ask you. How did you meet Brian Mancini?
Met Brian Mancini really through a fly fishing. I'm a member of the White Mountain Fly Fishing Club in Cholo, and they wanted to take a group of veterans fly fishing on the San Juan River. And I said, well, I might be able to help you with that. And working with Rick Kell, we found Brian. I said, where does Brian live? They go, he lives in Surprise. I said, Surprise? I mean, that's where I am.
A severe injury in 2007 where I had a head injury, I had post-traumatic stress, and I had an astronomical amount of physical pain. I had my whole face rebuilt, my whole forehead is titanium. They cut me from ear to ear, gave me a titanium plate in my forehead, rebuilt my orbital socket. My palate was blasted out, my cheekbone was blasted out, and they rebuilt that from my hip. So I had some serious trauma, and what I started realizing is that I was taking 8 to 12 different medications at any point in time, and personally, from a personal perspective, after I got out of the window of surgeries and kind of finding my new balance, my new routine, I started realizing that a lot of the medications were altering my personality and altering my capability. I was becoming an over-medicated couch potato. And in wanting to find the healthiest me, I kind of stepped out and tried to find some different solutions. And that's when I really started getting some healing.
What's interesting about Faraday's Troops First, Brian Mancini was on 60 Minutes on Operation Proper Exit. This was sponsored by Faraday's Troops First. You want to talk about a program that really struck home or your heart. Brian went through Faraday's Operation Proper Exit, went back to the spot he was injured, to the very spot that explosion took place, along with 7 other veterans. And Troops First has been doing this as a healing process because when they were injured, they didn't walk away. They might have woken up in Germany at the hospital and not known what happened.
So Dominic, I'd like to hear a little bit more about your story. How long were you in the armed services?
I joined the Army in 2003, directly out of high school. I worked through the summer, and then I ended up joining in 2003 in November. And I did my actual first flight out on a plane was to go to basic training in Missouri. But I was born and raised here, and then I went to Missouri, did all my training there to become a military policeman. And then upon completing that, I was stationed in Missouri for a few years before I ended up deploying to Iraq in 2006.
I see. And you came back in 2000?
My tour actually only lasted exactly 14 days. We were in country for 14 days before my vehicle was hit with an IED, which damaged my lower extremities. And I was forced to be medevaced out and sent home to recover in San Antonio, Texas.
You mentioned PTSD. I understand that you told us in a previous conversation before the show that you actually had issues with PTSD. I believe it was something like 5 times or more. Could you give us a little bit about what PTSD is and how and what happened with you? And
Sure, I think, just post-traumatic stress is a human reaction. It's a human reaction to a trauma. Whether you're severely wounded in combat or whether you're severely wounded in a car accident. It's the human reaction, and it's in all of us. It's kind of a defensive posture that happens when the human spirit and the human body experiences too much trauma. What this generation is facing, and what I've personally experienced, is after being in combat for over 13 years as a nation, our nation's longest running conflict, with an all-volunteer force, we're recognizing that this generation specifically has been exposed to numerous traumatic events through the numerous tours that have been put on us as a generation to serve this nation.
Is there anything really being done to help these returning soldiers with post-traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder? And what have you done to alleviate some of your symptoms?
Sure. I think, a bigger understanding is we've obviously seen the headlines in the media recently, and our government is trying to get a grasp on what this generation needs. There is a learning curve, and if we remember early on in the conflict, we didn't have the right body armor we needed in theater. And through evolution and through time, we got that equipment. That has a cause and effect. And now that we're surviving those blast injuries because of this new advancements in equipment, we have to recognize that we're coming home and we're living. And then there's secondary and tertiary issues that are derivative of our service to our country and the weapons that were being used during our conflict. Personally, what I've been able to do is find healthy resources within my community. There's definitely a gap in care, and veterans are so used to going to one place or one algorithm for care. What I found in my transition is that there was a bunch of resources within our communities. There was healthy alternatives to deal with my pain. There was healthy alternatives to deal with my post-traumatic symptoms, and I found that through alternative pain modalities like acupuncture and spinal networking and chiropractic care. And then also with the PTSD treatment, or the post-traumatic stress symptoms, I found a lot of alleviation through meditative practices such as Tai Chi and yoga and deep breathing exercises. And that's really when I started finding a healing. I was able for my body to reset and not be influenced cognitively by a lot of the medications.
Well, of all these alternate therapies, which ones do you or have you seen in your connection with other veterans that work on the soldiers that are coming home now?
When you look at combat and the traumas from combat, you got to recognize that we are mind, body, soul creatures, and combat is truly an overwhelming of the mind, the body, and the soul and the spirit. So when we come back out, we need to address all those issues. There isn't any one specific algorithm that works for each person, but recognizing that, giving that veteran and empowering that veteran to find healthy alternatives. So if Dominic says, I have an interest in acupuncture, or I've thought about doing that in the past, and that works for him to help manage his pain, then that's a plus in the win column.
And the great thing about the program was it did open our eyes to that, but at the end of the 12 weeks, it ended, and it left a lot of questions as to where I could go forward from there. That's where Operation Healing Journey and the Honor House came in, where they helped me find the modalities that I took to, that I personally enjoyed, and helped me in my PTSD, and within my local area, where I believe I go to appointments every day within 30 minutes of my house. So I'm able to continue my yoga to help me calm down and keep me calm, and also teach me those breathing exercises.
So what that allows the veteran to do is be empowered by finding the resources from within this community. It exposes them to things in the Advancing Heroes program that they may have not been accustomed to utilizing in their healing process. And the great thing about the Advancing Heroes program is all those modalities that they're introduced to, they're within every major community. So they can graduate from that, and what they're ultimately learning is how to find a tool, the right tool for the problem at the time. So if the veteran is being overwhelmed and he's having a post-traumatic stress, he's recognizing that he has some symptoms, he now has a tool. He now knows that he can do some deep breathing exercises and get some alleviation from that. He knows that if he's in physical pain, that there's resources within the community that he can go and get alleviation that's going to be healthy for him. We, as Honor House, have been involved with a number of different program developments. We have, through a behavioral health organization that we partnered with, we have helped develop what's called a 12-week program for PTS for post-traumatic stress called the Advancing Heroes Program. And Dominic is a graduate of the Advancing Heroes Program, and he's also a participant in the Honor House's Operation Healing Journey program, which helps bring those resources from the community and creates customized calendars for our veterans in transition. And he's done both of those programs.
So Dominic, can you tell me, like from the beginning, how did you get involved, and how do these programs work?
I was having my own fight with my own PTSD, and one of my representatives came to me at the beginning of the year to tell me about the Advancing Heroes program with Teros. I ended up going into it a little hesitant, but while I was there, I learned that there was other things besides just group therapy and sitting down and talking to a doctor that were able to help me with my PTSD, not completely healing me, but giving me ways to kind of adapt to what I'm dealing with these days. Also just kind of giving me ways to work around it, where even though I'm having an episode, I could calm myself down faster than I used to before. And the thing about that was eventually the Advancing Heroes program ended after 12 weeks. And so it left a lot of questions where I was going to go from there, where the Honor House came in with the Operation Healing Journey.
Can you tell me, just either one of you, Brian or Dominic, some of the programs, actual things that are involved in helping, or that did help you to deal?
In the Advancing Heroes program, they offered us several different modalities, I believe they're called, where we had equine therapy, where we went out and did therapy sessions with horses, and then they also offered chiropractic care, spinal networking, acupuncture, and yoga, all within the program.
I'd like to interrupt you for just a moment. And could you talk more about traumatic brain injury and what your group has to offer for people who have suffered from this as they come back from overseas?
Sure. So in recognizing some of the derivative and signature injuries of this generation in combat, we recognize that post-traumatic stress from the numerous deployments, and then obviously traumatic brain injury from the blast injuries. The best way to explain that I found possible is that we all are familiar with concussions. And many of us across the nation are fans of football.